Hello, welcome to Anupali. We're here once again to talk about the business of the nation, about the issues that matter to you and impact your daily lives. Last week, I thought we had a very thoughtful and productive discussion on hypertension and diabetes, two chronic non-communicable diseases which are affecting a great number of our citizens. This is what this program is about, addressing the matters that are relevant to you and hold implications for your well-being. I hope to continue discussions along this line so that together we can identify ways to improve and bring value to the lives of all Dominicans. I want to comment on a development this past week that we think is significant and hopeful for the global efforts to stem the debilitating effects of climate change. As you're well aware, Dominica, along with many other small island states here in the Caribbean, and indeed from other regions of the world, has played a leading role in the global efforts to tackle the issue of climate change. We have led the way in building awareness about the emergency and in advocating real commitment and real action from the global community in that regard. For these global efforts to be effective, all nations, big and small, must be at the table and must play their part in dealing with this global challenge. When the United States pulled out of Paris Climate Accord in 2016, it was a significant blow to those efforts, especially because of the fact that the US, one of the leading economies in the world, is one of the leading emitters of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And its involvement will be critical for serious and effective action. The US President-elect Joe Biden has signaled that his administration will rejoin those accords, news that we welcome very much. But most significant for us has been his recent announcement that he has since proceeded to nominate former US Secretary of State John Kerry as a special envoy on the climate crisis. And he has indeed appointed him to a cabinet-level position. The government of Dominica views the nomination of John Kerry, who signed the Paris Climate Accord on behalf of the US in 2016, as a firm commitment of President-elect Joe Biden to make climate change a top priority for his presidency. Indeed, Mr. Kerry has the experience and skills to work with the global community on such matters. These developments have given us renewed hope of possible success in this global effort to fight the scourge of climate change. We want to congratulate the US President-elect for his stated commitment and the significant appointment of former Secretary of State Kerry, who himself was a US presidential candidate a few cycles ago. Dominica looks forward to working closely with the United States of America and all other nations on this significant issue that speaks to our economic well-being and our very survival. We know too well here in Dominica that the global warming that is changing our climate is already having dire consequences. And there is, may I say, this fierce urgency for all nations to act with determination and resolve. And while we are on the topic of climate, we should take time to express our sympathies and solidarity with the people of Nicaragua and Honduras, who have had to endure in recent weeks back-to-back hurricanes. ETA arrived in Nicaragua on 3rd November as a Category 4 hurricane, which also ripped through Honduras. Less than 2 weeks later, Iota, also a Category 4 hurricane, made landfall just 15 miles south of where ETA had hit. Even as I speak, we continue to get reports of mass displacements and growing economic hardships among the people there. But even at a time when all nations are going through their challenges brought on by COVID-19 pandemic, we must not forget the people of Nicaragua and Honduras, who now must contend with this additional challenge. We pray that the good Lord will bless them. On today's program, I have decided once again to place myself on the receiving end of the questions. With me are three journalists who will pose questions about various issues pertinent to the country's development. This follows on a commitment I made to the journalists to meet with them more regularly to discuss the business of the state. Carla John Baptist, who was here before, is a freelance journalist who writes for the Associated Press, as well as for several local news outlets. Gavin Richards is the interim president of the Dominica Media and Communication Association and the sports editor at DBS Radio. And Tim Dura is a journalist of vast experience who is currently the owner of Dominica News Online. Gentlemen, welcome and good evening. Welcome to Onupali. Tim, welcome. What do I call you? Mr. Dura, Tim?
Tim will suffice.
Tim will suffice. Please, can you say something about yourself to the listening public?
Well, let's begin with what has already been said. Well, thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Let's begin with what has already been said. I am the owner of Dominica News Online, but prior to owning my business in the media industry, I worked for several years, first in radio at Dominica, Dominica Broadcasting Corporation. I said banana because I also worked at the Dominica Banana Marketing Corporation. And I rose to the rank of program director, but left in 1989 to join the Dominica Banana Marketing Corporation, whereas I helped to set up the public and grower relations department at that company. Stayed there for a number of years, maybe 11 years, I think, and then moved on to Marpin, telecoms and broadcasting, where I became the news director. And then, after leaving Marpin, I bought Dominica News Online and have been the owner since then. I have to say, though, I'm trained in mass communication at the University of the West Indies.
Okay, welcome. Carla, you're a regular?
No stranger.
No stranger.
Yeah, so there's nothing much to add. What is already said, what has already been said.
Sure, welcome.
Thank you.
Gavin, you're the interim president of the Media Association. Can you?
Yes.
Please, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for having me on the program. Yes, I'm the interim president of the Dominica Media and Communications Association. It was an association formed back in 2017, and we're 3 years into the business now. I'm also the sports editor at DBS Radio, as you said. I've acted as news editor at DBS Radio as well, and I've been in the field of journalism for 20 years. I started off at Marpin Telecoms back in 2000. So I'm thankful to be here this evening.
So, welcome. Well, you will be with me for the next hour and a half. And so I am handing over to you the program, and you will decide how you go along with asking the question. So I will fasten to you, and in an hour and a half time, I shall regain control of the program.
And like I did the last time, I let Tim do the first shooting.
Sure.
Last time, Curtis. So, Tim, you have the first ball.
Well, thank you, Carlisle. I suppose you're passing on to me out of deference for my seniority, right?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Okay, Mr. Prime Minister, I'd like to begin. But first of all, I'd like to crave your indulgence. Well, to ask you perhaps more than one question on the issue at hand. But before I do that, I want to say a very good evening to everyone watching and listening to this program. It's wonderful to have you as part of this happening. And I also, if I did not reach out to my staff at DNO, and as they put it in young local parlance, big them up, I would be in hot water. So I was specifically asked to big up my staff because they're watching this evening and they were very excited about the prospect of DNO being represented here. So big up to all of you. I'm not going to call names. I don't want anybody to get jealous, but I'm glad you're with us. Now, on to the business at hand, Prime Minister. The first question I'd like to ask has to do with the International Airport project. Mm-hmm. I think we can all agree that there is national consensus on the need for an international airport in Dominica. But there are some people who have concerns about the government's latest proposal as to where the airport is to be constructed. And we know that in 1998, the then government acquired lands for an international airport in the Wesley-Woodford Hill area. 6 different studies were done to ascertain the suitability of that location and land was acquired for that purpose. But 22 years later, your government has said that it has chosen a new site in the same area. Why the change of location?
Well, first of all, there is the only, in respect to the 1998 site, we only have the Planning and Stanley report. That is a report, a copy of which I have, and a copy which I can make available to yourself at some point. Now, in 1988, the then Freedom Party government received a grant from the from the UK government to do a feasibility study to determine the suitable location for the construction of an airport. It was commissioned. It was done by a gentleman, entity led by Sir Alexander Gibbs, and part of his team, it was Sir Alexander Gibbs and Partners. He, in association with Coopers and Lybrand Associates Limited and the United Kingdom Civil Aviation Authority, under assignment by the Overseas Development Administration. That is what is now DFID today, and so forth. And that study, that report, and there was a supplemental report in 1989 by the same Sir Alexander Gibbs on the airport. And they canvassed the entire country. They went to La Plaine, saying that they should not get involved in the construction of the airport because they would be interfering in the elections of Dominica. So the Planning and Stanley report did not make any reference to Sir Alexander Gibbs. They completely set it aside. My involvement in airport development as Prime Minister of Dominica, setting aside night landing at the now Douglas Charles Airport, in respect to the international airport, I put in place a team of local experts to review all of the studies that are on the table. That was in 2008, and they submitted the report in 2009. To review all of the studies on the airport. So they looked at the Stanley and Planning, the Planning and Stanley report, and they looked at the Sir Alexander Gibbs report. Two main documents on international airport studies in Dominica. And the membership of that committee included Mr. Vincent Filbert, who was then Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism. We had Mr. Lucien Blackmore, an engineer, Mr. Wendell Lawrence, and Mr. Wendell Lawrence is a very interesting person in that he was the manager of the UWP airport project program. So he was the chairman, he was the manager of that particular group, overseeing all matters relating to the 1998 airport. And then we have Mr. Leonard Royer, who is a pilot. We had Mr. Edward Lambert, who was the National Authorizing Officer. We had Mr. Don Corriott, who was the manager of the then Melville Airport. We had Mr. Kelvin Roll, who was the Chief Physical Planner. We had Mr. St. Bernard Sebastian. And we had also Mr. Gary Ed, who was supposed to be in it but couldn't make it because he was moving on as chairman of the Dominica Invest Dominica Authority. And they set aside the UWP site of 1998 for a number of reasons, citing the visibility issue, massive cloud cover, it would be only instrument landing, non-instrument landing, and that the airport would be in serious difficulty in terms of functioning because visibility would be very poor. So they set aside this report and went ahead with the recommendations of Sir Alexander Gibbs in respect to the location. Years passed by, we decided, let us pursue this airport development, and we contacted and contracted a U.S. firm, Lundgren & Brown, which is a reputable firm dealing with international airports. They were involved in the Caribbean, they were involved in Asia, United States of America. And I said to them, because I wanted to approach this team from removing all political considerations, because this is an airport. This would be the biggest infrastructural project taking place in Dominica. And because this thing has been so political in the past, with the UWP having a site, the Freedom Party having a site, I wanted to ensure that we got the best independent advice. And I said to the gentleman, you are the experts, here's Dominica. Tell me where we should build an airport based on your studies. And we did a lot of this investigation quietly because I did not want to raise people's hopes unnecessarily on this airport, because we've been talking about the airport for over 50, 60 years. right? So they came back and they gave us a location. And incidentally, it is right where Sir Alexander Gibbs indicated, with a slight shift in the alignment. Simplest. Slight shift in the alignment. As a matter of fact, they offered 3 alignments. And they said this one would be the best one to choose for a number of reasons. And so we decided to proceed with this. This is how the site came about. And I did not go to other countries because people would say, well, you know, Skerrit went to Venezuela and Cuba and China and they're best friends and so on. Though these countries have some of the best brains on construction of airports, but went to America. And the truth is, this is, for me, this is not political. I would love for Dominica to have an airport. I would have loved for Dominica to have had an airport in Ms. Charles' days. But the reality is, we have been struggling to build an airport because financing an airport is not easy. And international and regional financial institutions will not give you money. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, my friend Dr. Gonzalez built an airport. CDB did not give him $1. The World Bank did not give him $1. The IFC did not give him $1. Because when you look at airport construction in small islands like ours, people always tell you that it is not economically viable. And so how do you go about financing this thing? And so in respect to the site, I want to limit my response on the site because I suspect you may have supplementary questions on this. In respect to the site, this is how we arrive at the site. By setting up the 2008 task force of local experts, and sometimes, you know, we have talent in Dominica and we overlook it external. And this report that was presented by the local experts was exceptional. You know, very detailed, very detailed. And they advised on the Alexander Gibbs site. And the American firm recommended the same Alexander Gibbs site with a slight modification in alignment. And in respect to the 1998 report, and the truth is, I have read this report, and I don't want to criticize Planning and Stanley, but I'm not sure whether they have any experience in airport development. Because the quality of the report, and I suspect that there may have been political interference in this report. And you could see the use of language where they were not conclusive in that. And I believe one of the reasons why, and I'm satisfied that they would have identified the same Alexander Gibbs area, but you had a situation where a portion of Wesley would be impacted. And for any government, whether it's UWP or even myself, when I got the report from the American firm L&B, I took some time to reflect upon it. Because for me to go to Wesley and tell the people that some of you have to be relocated and so forth was a challenge. How do I tell an 83-year-old man, Mr. Williams, for example, and his wife, who came from the United Kingdom, who living comfortably in a big house, 40,000 square feet of land, that you have to be relocated? And so I did not want to go down to Wesley until we were satisfied we were in a position to finance the airport. And I say so with the greatest of sincerity, that the site identified by us is not political. It was based strictly and absolutely on professional, independent advice on where is the best location to build an international airport for Dominica. And I don't intend to play political football on it. This is not about whether I give somebody a half acre of land, a quarter acre, or 2,000 square feet of land in Jimmy's or something. This is about the future of Dominica and a project which we all believe could be a game changer for our country if we're able to build it. So this is how as Prime Minister, as a government, we came about with the site that is currently in place.
So, Prime Minister, what is the title of that report?
Which one?
The one on which you based your decision to...
It's called the Dominica New International Airport, Draft Master Plan and Site Selection.
No, is this something
April 2017.
Is this something that's available to the public? Because questions have been raised since you announced the intention to build the airport, that, look, there is no report, no document which indicates why you have decided to choose that particular site. But I'm getting the details right now.
But Tim, that's not necessarily true. Mm-hmm. We have spoken about the airport before. I spoke about the airport when I said to the country that I set up this fund, utilizing $5,000 each month to go towards the airport. And I indicated to the country that we had this study back in the days. But I believe that because there are some who are now recognizing that it's about to happen, then we have all sorts of condemnation of it, all sorts of comments about it. And it's unfortunate, it's unfair to the people of Dominica that every time we get to do something constructive in this country, people are saying to me, okay, Skerrit, well, make sure you have this on the airport, make sure you have this on the terminal, but we're saying we don't on the airport. We're saying that we're destroying the whole of Wesley. We're saying that go back to ULP site with no rational basis or arguments put forward to say why we should go to ULP site. And the question is, why didn't ULP go to the Freedom Party site? If we are asking logical questions in that line, why didn't ULP go to the Freedom Party site? I did not set aside the ULP site. I did not set aside the Freedom Party site. I put in place a group of local experts to review the documents for me independently. And if you look at, I would say that if you look at the membership of that committee, local committee, most of the people are anti-Labour Party people. But for me, that was not the preoccupation of mine. My view is this: anybody in Dominica who has a skill, who has a talent, and who wants to place those skills and talents at the disposal of the country, the government, I'm prepared to engage in. I have a difficulty with people when they use their positions to undermine me politically and undermine the country's development politically. But as long as you respect that we have to work together earnestly and honestly and transparently, I have no difficulty with this. And then to top it up, I decided again to bring an American firm to come in to advise us on this. And it is based on the 2008-2009 report from the local experts and the 2017 advice from this international American firm that we went along with the study. And just to say finally, that it is really in the same location, just with slight realignment of the runway, of the Sir Alexander Gibbs report. And it would have saved us buying 531 acres, 531 acres of land by the ULP, and displacing hundreds of farmers, never gave them land in exchange so they could grow the crops. We're taking land from people, homes from people, and we're giving them land in Wesley. We're not taking them to Vickers and to Penville. They're going to be staying in Wesley. So the homes that are going to be taken for the airport, we're building homes for those who have accepted homes. Those who have accepted land, we're giving them land right in Wesley, in the Joe Burton area, which is one of the most wonderful parts of Wesley. And we'll be constructing this road along Joe Burton to come across to Palm Tree, creating improved access for agricultural lands, for tourism development, so that people can take greater advantage of the international airport. So we are very sensitive. I can say to the people of Dominica, I am very careful with how we go about acquiring people lands and compensation and so forth. So this is really, in a nutshell, I'm not sure if it's a nutshell, more than a nutshell, how we arrived at. And I wanted to go at length with the response, because I know this is one of the main issues out there in the public domain. We go back to the ULP site, or there's no airport. But there's the planning and standing report really is and based on the 2008 report from our local expert, going there would be a waste of money, because you would have only one approach to the runway. It would be essentially a Douglas Charles in a new location. And just to say to you, on chapter 10 of this report, the total cost these guys were quoting for the airport in 1998 was $80 million US. That's $214 million. That's a joke. And interestingly, the Sir Alexander Gibbs report was saying $713 million. You'd expect as the years go by, there'll be an increase. And the truth is, I recognize that there was a lot of political difference in the document, and these people have no airport development experience. Okay? It is estimated that ours will cost about between $800 to $950 or so million to construct. You're going to have to build several tunnels, one of which will be vehicular. All right? And the tunnels will be waterway. You're talking about tunnels where a truck can drive under. It's not no simple tunnel. Serious earth movement, cotton field. you know, and so that's how we're going with the airport and so on. So this is how we came about the airport.
If you'll permit me, Mr.
Sure.
Prime Minister, just one more question before I yield to my colleagues.
That's all right.
There are lots more questions, but
No, that's fine.
This one,
Please.
yes. Since you see this report, the report that on which your decision is predicated, is closely is similar, you know, to the Milton Gibbs. Is it Gibbs? The Gibbs.
So Alexander Gibbs.
Alexander Gibbs. Yes, Milton Gibbs used to be broadcast in Barbados. Is the report that the report which you're going to use, which you're using, is it final? Do you have other studies to do? Are there other studies that need to be conducted, or are you going to basically use the information from this Alexander Gibbs report to inform your decision?
The issue of this is there are many issues relating to the international airport. I'm not an international airport expert. I'm just a village politician, so I'm not an airport expert. I'm doing what people advise me on. There's a selection of site, and there's a process by which you go about doing this. Obviously, you have to do more detailed geotechnical studies. So that has to be that is part of the arrangement. So more detailed geotechnical studies to better understand the soil there, to inform the final designs of the runway and the terminal building, etc., etc. So that's one of the prerequisites for moving forward in respect to the airport. So before any major lifting start taking place, you have to do a detailed geotechnical study of the area where you will be you'll have some major boreholes. As a matter of fact, Tim, we had already commissioned the geotechnical studies last year, but here comes COVID-19 and restricted the travels of individuals and so on. So now that we're moving in the airport, we're moving apace with regards to the geotechnical study. So there'll be a geotechnical study. We also are about to commission a very detailed EIA with a local international firm. There's a local firm here that is joining with an international firm with greater experience, because this project requires a lot of details, and so that will be done. And they will start in earnest in the month of December.
But it seems to me that from this preliminary report, it basically speaks to the site, the location.
Location, yeah.
Okay, but you have already indicated that, say, come 2021, you know, the airport will begin. You know, so if you have not yet conducted the geotechnical or physical investigation study, how can you make that decision at this point?
But there are a lot of things that involve in any construction of anything, whether it's an airport or a home. You have to site preparation, offices. We have to build testing labs for soil and concrete testing lab on site. We have to set up offices for the various, for the international airport company that we have set up, and plus the developers, plus the engineers, plus the contractors. All of this will have to be in place. You will have to start the clearing of the site. You'll have to start the geotechnical studies of the area, and further soil testing. So there are a lot of preparatory work that involves, that is part of the construction, that is part of the development of the project. You will not see actual mortar and concrete not before a year, because earth movement is massive. Cutting and fill is massive there. That will take more than a year to do the cut and fill and the compacting and so forth for the runway and so on. So you will see movement, if all goes well, God's willing. You will see movement in 2021 on site. It will not be pouring of concrete, it will not be putting of asphalt, it will not be the steel frame structures or the construction of the terminal building, but you will see movement on site. Had it been a greenfield site, meaning we do not have the encumbrance of people's homes and people's private properties, you would have seen movement now. Had it been a greenfield site. But the fact is, unfortunately, it is highly encumbered with private properties, and government only has 2 plots of land in that area. But you will see movement in 2021, God's willing.
Can find out from us, because my understanding of the geotechnical and the physical investigation studies is that it focuses on the underlying nature of the soil and the rock formation. Yeah. So that if you do that study and you find out, for example, that it is not suitable you know, for the construction of an airport. Can you then proceed?
The preliminary study showed that it's suitable.
It's suitable.
As I understand it, I'll defer to engineers and experts on this. The geotechnical study is to advise you on the soil type, the formation there. That would also advise you on the designs, specifications, the engineering that you have to employ, etc., etc. And when you meet challenges in construction, there are mitigation measures that one would have to put in place. The reality is, we have to appreciate is, Dominica is a mountainous country. I mean, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I mean, what we're doing here in Dominica compared to what Prime Minister Gonzalez did in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is joke, you know. I mean, he had to relocate 2 or 3 cemeteries, over 400 people with homes, big homes down there. I went down there before he started the project. A church, I believe, was relocated, and massive earth movement. So and Dominica's formation is similar to that of St. Vincent, very mountainous, very hills and valleys, and having a site selected is almost close to zero. Luckily for us, we have this area that we can look at. So the geotechnical, as I understand it, and I'm saying so on advice, that is ready to inform the soil type and what kind of engineering you have to employ for the designs and for construction.
Prime Minister, Sir Dennis Byron was to have started some work in Dominica sometime in February, and he was to have delivered a report by the ending or somewhere in the middle of December. We are almost into December and Sir Dennis is not yet on island. What is the status of that situation?
Yeah, the only holdback where Sir Dennis was concerned was the delay in the appointment of the chairman of the Electoral Commission. And that was done, I believe, in October, early October, thereabout. And Sir Dennis was waiting for this, and we ourselves were waiting for this, because, as you know, he has to be in direct contact with the Electoral Commission. And so now that the commission is in place, is now fully installed, with your chairman in place, the work will begin in earnest. So that is the only delay, really, in respect to Sir Dennis starting up his work. But a lot of work has been done, as far as I understand it, in terms of research of documents, in terms of review of documents. I believe what has been delayed is the consultative part, the consultation part, where you would have to meet with various stakeholders. And the intention there was to have used the virtual means because of travel restrictions, quarantine requirements, etc. So he would have used the virtual means to interact and to consult with the various stakeholders which he has identified. So
the December deadline basically should be thrown off the window?
Well, I won't necessarily thrown out of the window in that manner. One would have to push the date back and have a new schedule, because our intention was to get this thing out of the way as soon as possible. This has been a contentious issue. It has been an issue that has brought acrimony in our country. And I had made a commitment to the country that immediately after the elections, we will commence the process or to finalize and to close this chapter on electoral reform, which we support as a government. And I support personally as Prime Minister of the country. And we were pushing to have this done so we can start 2021 with the final report, with the legislation required, and use 2021, 2022 to go through the process as advised on the issue of electoral reform, supported by the international and regional communities. So it's a matter now for us to get a new schedule to determine and to inform the country when we believe Sir Dennis will be in a position to provide Dominica with the final report and recommendations on what is required where electoral reform is concerned.
Mr. PM, as we are on electoral reform, we've heard recently from the OAS, the Observer Mission, some recommendations for them related to electoral reform. One of them was on campaign finance regulations. What's your views on that?
Well, I have no difficulty with campaign finance reform. The question is what complexion is going to take, how it's going to be structured, how it's going to be regulated, what are the requirements, what are the demands. So I do not want to make a definitive position on this matter until I get details. Now, in some countries, for example, in the United States of America, there are laws relating to campaign financing. The Treasury of the United States provides presidential candidates with funding from the Treasury, but you can choose not to accept it. And there will be no limit in how much you can raise. I mean, Barack Obama may have raised over $1 billion in his second election. Mr. Trump may have raised a similar amount. I mean, so there are no limits in this. So it's a matter for us to look at what is being proposed. What is being proposed in respect to electoral reform. But there's no one size fits all. I mean, different countries have their own issues. And the question is, would Dominicans be prepared to allow the Treasury of Dominica to finance the elections of political parties? You see what I'm saying? So this is something that one has to put on the table to see the final details. But as a principle, I have no difficulty with it. But in terms of the details, I would have to see it before I can make a definitive position on this.
I believe, Mr. Prime Minister, that's a view that you have held from since 2000, I think, or thereabouts, when I think you were interviewed by your nemesis, Alex Linton. I remember you making that point.
You see, Tim, I've always mentioned that people can negotiate words, but not principles. So my principles don't change. My words may change, but my principles don't change. And you're right, I have been consistent with this matter for the last 21 years.
Yeah, we have to come back to the international airport. I'm getting, people always...
People message you questions.
Yes.
No problem. No problem.
A lot of stuff is coming in. So, as I'm looking at my phone there, someone sent me there 8 steps to building a new airport. And then one of the things they're saying, the document is saying, the Florida Department of Transportation, Aviation, and Space Ports Office must approve the proposed new airport site prior to capital funding.
Well,
do you have that?
Well, you have the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority, and you have ICAO. All of these 2 institutions, they have standards that they set. They have requirements that they set for an airport. I am not here to go into details, technical details, because I'm the Prime Minister of the country. I'm not an engineer, and even if I were, I will not be speaking as an engineer. I will be speaking as Prime Minister of the country. So I leave this to experts to put, and we can make available the experts, and you can pose the technical questions to them. But in the reports, there are clear requirements from ECA, there are clear requirements from the ICAO, and we've been in touch with them. We've written to ICAO, they have assigned an officer to us who will be available to us throughout the steps of the way. And I made it clear to the government that at every step of the way, ICAO and the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation must be involved. Before we do anything, we must share it with them. So all of the studies we made available to people in a transparent way, because we want to do this thing right. I don't want to build an airport and spend $900 million or whatever it is on an airport, and then we can't get planes to come in because of regulatory issues. No, we're going to get everybody involved. This is why I am dealing with professionals on this. People who have built airports, people who know about airports. And so the American firm, we're using this American firm, L&B, to do the designs for the airports for us. And in the process, we have also mandated them, and they have been in touch with ICAO, and they will continue to be in touch with ICAO on every step of the way. So all of the information there. And we also have access to some airport experts from the World Bank. The World Bank that's placed at my disposal as Prime Minister, experts in airport development, who will also engage as a further independent group of experts who will review documents presented even by this American firm. So that every step of the way, we have different layers of reviews and validation, so that we get the best possible advice that the world can offer.
You mentioned the name of the American firm that you've engaged.
Yeah.
Just briefly, is it L&B?
It's called Lundgren and Brown.
Lundgren and Brown.
Yeah.
So, Prime Minister, recently you mentioned that there was to be an airport development company to deal with the airport, and that they would be handed over the site December, the start of December. Where are we as it relates to the acquisition of lands and the airport?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the company has been registered, and I'm hoping to take the names of the board members to cabinet on Tuesday on the appointment. We're in the process of recruiting a CEO. We're in the process of recruiting, other support staff, engineers, and etc. We have also contracted the services of the gentleman, and he will commence in January. The gentleman who was responsible was the CEO of the St. Vincent Airport Company. And one of the reasons why we have used them is because the airport, the approach we've taken in Dominica is similar to that which St. Vincent took. And so there's nothing wrong in learning from somebody else's experience. And this gentleman, Dr. Rudy Mathias, is an exceptional Caribbean person, very bright guy, very knowledgeable, and he has been very helpful in these processes. In respect to the acquisitions, we acquired for this airport 411 acres of land from 233 property owners. The government, as I said earlier, owned 2 of these properties. So we essentially acquired from 231 people. We are in negotiations. There are different approaches that we're taking with regards to the settlement of compensation based on the individual requests of individuals. So we're still in the process of negotiating. Now there are 162 vacant properties out of the 233. Okay, and negotiations have been finalized with 74 of the vacant properties, and 13 will be placed in escrow. So we continue negotiations. Some people we cannot locate, and therefore this money is replaced in an escrow, so that when the owners appear, then we can continue negotiations with them. We have identified 71 built or developed properties, homes, businesses, and all built properties have been negotiated, with about 16 which will be placed in escrow. And about 57 owners requested house and land swap. The people who want land and house. There are people who want monies for their land, and there are people who want land for land. So the different approaches people are taking. Now, so we have paid, we're paying people as we go along. As we go along negotiating, we pay. We'll make payments to another 6 people next week, and another 7 in the next couple of weeks. So as we go along, and we've made payments to other people, as we go along. Now, those persons who want house and land swap, we are finalizing. There's still some tweaking that were made by the technical people on the floor plan, and we should begin construction of these homes this month. Now, I can say to the 2 Dominicans, we've approached this thing in a very sensitive manner. And so you'll have a situation, for example, just to tell you how well we're taking care of the people. Somebody will have 2,000 square feet of land and a house thereon. But that person is getting 7,000 square feet.
How is that so?
In a better location. Because we understand when you're taking somebody from where they are, you have to make sure that the person is better off. You understand? Because the person is giving up a lot. The person didn't ask to be disturbed. The person didn't put a sign up for sale, and the government came to buy it. The government is the one going to displace these people, dislocate these people. And then the homes that we're building are resilient homes, nicely designed homes, 4-bedroom homes with laundry, with powder room, with kitchen, with 3-bedroom homes, 2-bedroom homes, and so there are also people who have whose lands are caveated by the bank, so we have to engage the financial institutions. So we're very, very careful how we approach this, and we're very responsive to the requests of the people, obviously within reason and within the confines of the laws of Dominica.
Have you indicated, or did I miss the location of the lands that you're going to use to build the houses?
In Joe Burton.
Mm-hmm.
And those of us who know Wesley, Joe Burton is a wonderful place. Mm. It's a wonderful place. And when people say we're destroying Wesley, we're actually going to build a better Wesley. Because Wesley is going to get a brand new school, primary school. You're going to create a new community with all of the electrical lines underground, all of the cables underground, all of the telephone lines underground, resilient homes, concrete roofs, decorated with alu zinc, properly done, with certain restrictions so that you do not compromise the homes or the standards of the homes and the value of the homes. And people are excited about Joe Burton. There, people will always have anxieties about giving up their properties. But I have not met one person who has said, anybody who we buy lands from, who is opposed to giving it up. Who's opposed to giving it up? And I referenced the 83-year-old man. Understand? A gentleman sent me a WhatsApp message yesterday. We're taking his land close to the Woodford area. And I asked him, are you, tell me, Prime Minister, I'm one of the guys the government buy my land, my house. He just built his house, he and his wife. I said, are you satisfied? He said, yes, man, I'm right. I good. He said, I'm owing the bank 6,500. When they pay the bank for me, I have accepted money for my property. I'm getting a lot. I've already contacted the architect and the contractor. So people are there. There's some people who have certain anxieties about certain things, and as we go along, we continue to address them. But the opposition to the airport that's been tried, people attempting to create in West is not there. And I'm really grateful to the people of West, because that was one of my main concerns about the reaction of the property owners in respect to acquiring the land.
But isn't there a group, PM, of people, a group formed?
There's a committee of property owners that was formed on their own volition. And they invited us to a meeting. They've been in existence since last year. So a group of them came about, and they formed themselves, and I've met with them myself personally on either 2 occasions or 3 occasions, and I'm hoping to meet with them during the course of early December. I'm not sure if you're talking about an opposition.
There's also the Wesley Development Organization.
I don't know about opposition. I'm just talking about
opposition. But let me ask you, Mr. Prime Minister, unless you wanted to finish.
No, please. No, go ahead.
I want to go back to the Airport Development Company, or is what they call the Airport Development Company, right? Yeah. Okay, company. Yeah. You indicated that it is well on its way to operationalization, right?
Yeah.
What I would like to ask you is, have you drawn up the credentials, or if so, what will the credentials of that company be?
The mandate of the company is to oversee the construction of our international airport, and to ensure that things are going well, that there's an oversight of this. We check with qualities, payments issues, etc., etc. I'm hoping to give a public report on this once I finalize the members of the board. And I have made reference to this in the past as well. So this is essentially the mandate of the company. Now, just to say, the way we're going to go about, because one of the questions out there in the public is the financing of the airport. Okay? The way we're going, first of all, we were going to do this airport on our own, and this is why we started saving some monies for the airport. Then the Chinese government indicated its willingness to assist us with a significant portion of the construction funds. But COVID-19 came about. And like everywhere in the world, China has been impacted. And though they have communicated with me in recent times, they plan on sending a team, but I have to take control of the Dominica's timetable. And so, how do we go about financing the airport? We are utilizing the Citizenship by Investment program to help finance the construction of the airport. This would, minimize, if not completely eliminate, the imposition of taxes on Dominicans to help finance the construction of the airport, contracting loans, and you won't get concessionary financing for this, except if you get it from China, but you won't get financing from any international financial institutions for the construction of the airport. So we go in the route of the Citizenship by Investment program. And we're using the same approach that we have done with housing, with the construction of the health centers, with the construction of the hospitals. And I've heard people out there, a few people talking about this financing mechanism. Now, let's look at this, Dominica. The United States of America is the largest economy of the world. But like every country in the world, there are pockets of poverty in the United States of America. There are pockets of undeveloped and underdeveloped parts of certain parts of America, where investors will not use their monies to go into invest in those areas. What has the U.S. government done? It has developed, like Dominica, like other countries, a program called the EB5 program, where it utilizes a financial instrument called EB5 to give to developers to go out there to market and to promote and to raise funds to come to bring back to the United States to build hotels, build homes, build infrastructure, to improve the quality of life and the economic opportunities for this part of America. Now, these homes, these apartments that these people will build, belong to the developer, not to the American government. In Dominica, under our program, the homes that are built belong to the government of Dominica. What has the government done with those homes? It has given it to Dominican citizens. So the lady in Dalis and La Plaine who got a home, she'll eventually get a certificate of title in her name, and then she can bequeath it to her children. So we have the health centers. The health centers belong to the government of Dominica. The hospital in Marigot belong to the government of Dominica. Who are going to have access to this hospital? Dominican citizens. And so we have this financing instrument that we have been using in Dominica to the benefit of Dominicans. And we intend to use that same instrument to help us build the international airport. Now, with this, the risk is really the developers, because it is the developer who now has to sign contracts with the contractors. You see? So the risk is his, the developers. And in this instance, the developer will front load some of the financing so the airport can start, and we'll go along building the airport and be reimbursed with that finance instrument. And so this is how we're going to be financing it. Obviously, with land compensation, we're using our funds to do that. And we are also leaving opening for the Chinese government to assist. But I am the Prime Minister of Dominica, and I have to do what is in our best interest at any given time. And I am satisfied. And I'm not saying so because I'm the Prime Minister, and not because I have less time in office than I have served, but I believe this is our last opportunity to have an international in Dominica. And all of us, irrespective of political affiliation, whether you like me or not, that shouldn't be the consideration as to whether you support the airport. If you feel that there's something that we should pay attention to, send me a note. If you feel that there's something that you're hearing that we have not paid attention to, let me know. If you want to serve on the board, let me know if you want to serve on the board. I'll see whether we can get a place for you. If you have skills, you're an engineer, you're an accountant, you're a financial manager, let me know. If you want to help us run the soil lab, the testing lab, let us know. We're looking for young people to learn the skill on the job. So this is how we should be going about this, and not really the kind of arguments I'm hearing in the public domain about wanting to stop the airport, wanting to go to court, and this. This is not going to help us. If we say we're for the airport, then let us sit around the table and ask questions about it, but let us come with clean hands. Let us come with sincere hearts and sincere intentions. Do not, this is for our young people. This is not for me. I am 48 years old. The Bible says, I'm 10, so I'm not very far from 10. But my children are very far from 10. Our children are very far from 10. And what kind of country do we want to bequeath to them? And so forth. And do we want to build an airport that would be burdensome to them in terms of repaying, or one that they could benefit from the moment it is constructed?
A question from some retirees was saying that government normally in the course of looking at salary increases usually looks at increment for retirees. And from the research that I did, it appears that the last time retirees got any sort of increment was way back, I think in 1996 or thereabout. The Freedom Party passed it through Parliament, and the UWP implemented it. So the retirees are asking, what plans do you have? 20 years in office, what plans do you have to give them an increment?
Yeah, I agree with them entirely. I believe it's something that we should look at because the cost of living has been impacted upward. But you will recall, but just for the records, it is under my watch that I removed the income tax on pensions in Dominica. For all of these years, before I became Prime Minister, people's pensions were being taxed in Dominica. And I happened to have been told so one day. I said, but why is that so? You tell me the lady who had to cross so many ravines and walk to go to school to teach people that she worked for 35 years, we're still taxing her pension? That's not right. That's her contribution. She's been paid dividends, and we shouldn't be taxing the stuff. So I went to Parliament. First I went to Cabinet for paper. Cabinet approved it, went to Parliament, and we removed income tax on all pensions, irrespective of how much it is. Because what was happening, Carla, was that there were many people who were retirement age, but because the pension was being taxed, were not paying themselves any pension. So they were just working in the business and passing the profit onto the business. They were enjoying life at 70 years. And so people were able to now pay themselves the pension that they deserve and they earn. And so it is under my watch that we remove the income tax on pensions in Dominica. But I agree with this person who was passing the question to you. It is something that we should look at in terms of making some adjustments to the pension. But we also have to understand that these things are governed by legislation. It is what you put in that you have to get out. So it is not a straightforward matter, but it's something that we should look at nonetheless. And maybe we could change the legislation to say, well, every 5 years or every 6 years, there could be an adjustment to it so that you don't have somebody not able to buy, to meet their basic needs out of that. You also recognize that I increased, as Minister of Finance, the minimum pension you pay to anybody in Dominica. I first increased it to get from 200 to 200, and later I put it to 300. So nobody in Dominica gets less than $300 as a pension in Dominica. And before, people used to get $25, $36 a month. And I catapulted them to 200, and I catapulted them to 300. So there are a lot of changes that have been made. And I also increased the pension. I believe the Social Security contributions. I believe so. I check the records. So it is not since 1996. I have been a very generous Prime Minister, Minister of Finance. Because I understand the realities people live. Because I live among the people, and I have people have unfettered access to me. But I agree with you that it's something that we should look at, and maybe have it say, let's look at it every 5 years. So it's almost automatic that we could look at it, taking into consideration the cost of living index.
The Prime Minister, I have a question related to COVID-19. During the past week, we've seen a number of the companies responsible for the vaccines indicating that they're receiving a lot of high rates of success as it relates to the trials and whatnot. My question is, a COVID-19 vaccine, what mechanisms are being put in place for the vaccine to be available to Dominicans here?
Excellent. Well, we've been working on this for some time now. We're working on 2 tracks. One, we will be getting vaccines through PAHO. There's an international organization that has committed to providing Dominica with vaccine. I believe it might be about 20 or 20% of the population. The numbers will be finalized soon. But we're also in discussions with the World Bank. And through the World Bank, we are able to get financing for 20% of our population. I'm speaking to the World Bank to seek to increase that to 50% of our population. So the idea is 50% from the World Bank, and this 20 or 25% from PAHO, you're talking about 70-75%. And then we are also engaging friendly governments to mobilize some resources, because the intention is for us to be in a position to provide vaccine to 100% of the population. Obviously, it will be by choice, but at least 100% of our population would have access to this.
So
and the minister just had a meeting this week. I have not gotten the report coming out of that meeting. Minister for Health, Dr. McIntyre, but it was a continuation of the discussions which we've been having with PAHO within the regional framework.
So will the vaccines be at a cost to the average Dominican?
Well, you know these things. Those of us who can pay something will have to pay something, but I believe that we will keep it consistent with our policy on health, where everybody 18 and younger gets free medical care, and everybody 60 and older gets free medical care. But it all depends on how we get the financing. If somebody gives it to us for free, we're not going to sell it to Dominicans. If we get it at a highly subsidized price, we'll pass it on. Similar to what we're doing with the COVID test. A COVID test in America is $150 US. We get you for $100 EC dollars. We pay for it for 100. We pay 150 US for each of his COVID-19 tests. But we administer it to Dominicans at 100. So we always find a way of ensuring that people have access to these things and not make it prohibitive.
In terms of building public trust in the vaccine, because a lot of people would have been hearing the conspiracy theories about vaccines and whatnot. What plans or measures are going to be put in place to build some more public trust in the vaccine?
I think it has to do with public education. You know, with public education, obviously you say in the United States and United Kingdom, with over 95% success so far. There are other friendly governments that have vaccines. For example, China has a vaccine. I am satisfied that we were able to get vaccines from them. I just saw in the UAE procured a significant procurement from China with the vaccines. I saw the ruler of Dubai, publicly taking his vaccine. So I think it has to do with public education. You remember back in the days when you had polio and you had other health challenges and people had to be vaccinated. It was public education, utilizing your primary health system to communicate to the public and inform them about the importance of it. So I think these things, Gavin, we have to avoid disinformation and misinformation, and that is the challenge you have in seeking to educate people. But if you were to ask me, will I take a vaccine? My response to you will be yes. Once it's available. So if I don't like to be the first person, but if I being the first person would let people know that it is safe, then I will be the first person. But in this thing, I will always prefer to be last.
As we're still on COVID, the impact on the economy, Mr. Prime Minister, I would say towards August, during the budget, over $900 million budget was presented. In terms of the revenue projections, where are we now a few months into the budget? Because we're seeing a number of the other Caribbean countries going to be announcing various measures because of a shortfall in revenue. So where are we now?
That's the reality. I mean, I hear people talk and say all kinds of things, and the government is broke, the government is bankrupt, the government this and that. It has never been easy to run this country. I mean, Deputy General said so to us many times. It's never easy to run this country. It's a difficult country to run, and you'll always have challenges of financing. We have been fortunate as a government to have good partners out there, friendly governments, excellent relationships with international financial institutions. We have a track record people trust, people have confidence in. The European Union been exceptional. China, Venezuela, Morocco, you name it, UAE, Japan, the list goes on. There are many countries, Canada, the United Kingdom is a strong partner of ours. So these countries continue to provide support to us in big ways. And of course, our Citizens' Right Investment Program has been properly managed. That's to tell you, at the time of Hurricane Maria, we had about $300 million in the bank. While we got help from international community, the bulk of our interventions were done by us. All of the housing interventions, fixing the roofs, big roofs, were done by us, building of homes, building bridges and homes. So this pandemic has been devastating. With this second wave and even third wave, with your source markets depressed, in Europe and North America, people not traveling, and even those who have the means of traveling are skeptical about traveling because they don't want to go in the country, and then there's a lockdown, there's a shutdown, restriction of movements and so forth. So you will have an impact. The government has had to sustain the strain. We provided income support to those who've lost their jobs, temporarily or otherwise. We've provided support to small businesses. We've provided support to farmers, income support to vulnerable families, cash grants to vulnerable families. We have been paying the salaries for many private sector entities through the National Employment Program. The NEP is about $3.8 million every month, an important program that should never be compromised. We have not sent any public officer home. We have paid every officer on time and even before time. We have met all our debt obligations. Our debt obligations. We're current with this. You'll have challenges. You have more to spend than you're making. And this is the situation in all countries in the Caribbean. It's a huge challenge. And you are not projecting to have to go for this to be throughout the year. You were hoping that this thing would have subsided in North America and Europe, and you had seen a little movement before the summer ended, where tourists were coming in. But here's this second wave, and countries have to go in a lockdown and shutdown mode. You see, so people have now gone into the cave. There was an attempt to have the cruise ship move in, but unfortunately, some people were tested positive for COVID-19. So you have those challenges there going on. And what we did in Dominica very early was to look at our expenditure, and we made cuts where discretionary discretionary spending is concerned. So we cut down on telephone. We try to cut down on electricity and so on. We cut down on the use of vehicles locally, to cut down on insurance payments, all these things. So we have had to contain discretionary spending and use that saving to meet our legal obligations, to ensure that we can provide to our people. We pay $800,000 every month for seniors 70 and over. We continue to meet our obligations to students studying overseas, though we have some outstanding payments to be made to some of them for a number of reasons and some which we will attempt to explain tonight. So we continue to do this. In terms of our revenue, the VAT is not doing too badly, and the VAT is a good indicator of consumption in the country. So we sometimes we're off by 1 million or so, but at least the VAT is not doing too badly. We're hoping that it can continue. This is why we have been pushing heavily for the commencement of the high-ticket capital projects, for funding from the European Union, funding through our CBI program, funding from the Canadian government, funding from BNTF, funding from the British government, to push those projects so that they can stimulate the economy, they can be spending, there can be consumption taking place, and so people can move to things. We've provided support to the tourism industry to ensure that they can move, the small business people too. 300 and I believe they told me 363 small businesses benefited from the the concessionary loans at the aid bank. So 363 businesses benefited so far. And then, so remember we had made a commitment to 5 million. I am told by the manager of the bank that 4.6 million have been given out from that 5 million. And they're telling me that they have additional requests beyond the 5 million of about 8.8 million.
So
go ahead, please, sir.
Yeah, as you on that, because I don't want to, because just to help. Someone is just saying the amount of the 40,000 at the aid bank to assist middle class businesses. This facility was supposed to be available since after the passing of the budget, but nothing has happened.
Yeah, I am open. I accept that. Yeah. I accept that. Well, as you know, we have to sometimes rationalize spending and payments. So there has been a holdback on this. So I'm hoping that I may be in a position by next month, December, to be able to put some monies. Now that we have addressed significantly the 5 million original commitment at the aid bank. So I'm going to have to discuss with my financial secretary and the cabinet on whether we'll be in a position to make some additional funding available for the small business people. That's the 15,000.
Yeah, the 15,000.
Because we have on 8.8 in addition to the 5 million they have requests of about $8.8 million. So I have to discuss this tomorrow and on Tuesday with the Financial Secretary in the Cabinet.
Prime Minister,
So in terms of, we have always been a responsible government and prudent and so we are mindful of the needs, but we're optimistic. I don't go crying. Leaders don't go crying and complaining. Leaders find solutions to problems, and this is what I've been doing, finding solutions to problems, not coming to the country to complain. But the reality is, in all of these countries across the world, and we do not have the opportunity to print money, But we have been able to contract financing from a number of institutions. For example, OPEC is giving us $10 million in a concessionary rate. We're hoping to go to Parliament soon to have this approved. So that will also be helpful when we receive this. And the CBI has been generating some steady income for us that we've been using to pay our debt, to make sure we're current, because sometimes the debt payments come in huge chunks. I mean, in the month of August, I believe, we had to pay some $11 million. Between September and October, we had to pay about $19 million in debt payments. You see, so sometimes you have these huge ticket items that throws you off, and so forth. And we've put up the amnesty. Some 69 people have taken advantage of the amnesty, and it comes to an end, I believe, this month, Tuesday. I'm looking to maybe extend it by 1 month because there have been requests by people who say that their accountants have been a little slow because a lot of work to do. So we're looking at extending it. I'm hoping to make a statement on this tomorrow or Tuesday on the extension of the amnesty because people have already taken advantage of it.
Before moving on to something else, you're still on COVID, Gavin?
no, you could go ahead.
Okay. With COVID, Prime Minister, there have been complaints that the 72-hour period has been given in order to present a test, within which one has to present a negative test for entry into Dominica. It's becoming quite troublesome because I have been speaking with people who have actually experienced that problem of not being able to get the test within 72 hours. And traveling to Dominica and getting as far as, say, one of the Caribbean islands, Barbados, and not being able to get to Dominica because the time has run out and the test is no longer valid. Is this something that government is aware of and is considering doing something to alleviate? Because some of these people have had to buy additional tickets and so on overnight in other countries, and it's becoming costly and inconvenient.
Yeah, I mean, people are accessible to me, so I get also WhatsApp messages and calls from all over the country and all over, and so on. So I'm aware of the issue or the complaint, but this is the gold standard, the 24 to 72 hour period. CAFA has been very strong on this, advising member states on this, and we've been following this because we believe we have to both protect those who are coming in and those of us who have remained there. We have facilitated people who have not been able to get the results within that period. So if people come in and then you are subjected to a PCR when you get to Dominica, but you must go into quarantine. And after a specified period of time, I believe maybe a week or thereabout, you're given a second PCR, and then you're allowed to go home with clear guidelines as to how to follow. So, and I think there may be. I think one of the things that we need to really address in the government system is our communication with the public sometimes, and our response, and something like that. We need to be quicker for a response because people have anxiety. Somebody is at the airport, the plane is about to take off. The people are waiting for a call from Dominica and say, can I board this person? So I think we need to work on this. So it's something we keep talking about. But it is in our country's interest for us to keep to that and not compromise on the 24 to 72 hour PCR requirement. So it's important for us to do that because what we have picked up at the airport reinforces our position on this. that $24 should never be compromised. And the 5 or 7 days, I'm not sure how many days after, maybe 4, 5, 7 days, depending on where you're from, you subject it to another PCR, and then you send to them. So if you come into the Dominica with a PCR taken 24 to 72 hours, you're subject to a rapid test. But the countries where you come from, you must do mandatory quarantine at a government facility. So this is where it is. So we understand, I know of the people's anxieties, I know of the inconvenience of these people. But I'm saying to them that I would not want to take a political decision on changing this, because this is strong advice from PAHO, strong advice from CAFA, strong advice from the Ministry of Health, and for me to change it politically, I will be taking all of the risk associated with this and all of the fallout associated with this, and I do not play politics with the lives of people. And so I just want to tell people to bear with us with that. We're doing it for good reason. I would wish not to have this, but the reality is we need to have this. But I think we need to improve on our communication and our facilitation, and so forth. And sometimes, you know, at the end of the day, you are small, you have capacity constraints, and you have people who are multitasking in the system, and the folks at the Ministry of Health have been doing a fantastic job, you know, in managing this, and you know, you have contact tracing, you have testing to do, and so it's a serious operation. It's a serious operation. But I always tell people that, look, let's be positive, let's be constructive, but we're not doing this to be bad-minded. We're not bad-minded at all. We're in fact kind-hearted by putting this system in place to protect you.
PM, I wanted to ask there from someone there, two-part question, two different. Can you ask the PM what has happened to the plans regarding the homeless vagrants that are on the streets in Roseau? That was a hot topic regarding the tourism product a few years ago. And also, you've also made some pronouncements some time ago smoking in public place. And I remember you clearly saying that you intended to take that matter to Parliament. I wanted to find out also, where are we as it relates to that? Because that seems to be a serious issue also.
The issue of the vagrants, you know, I mean, the homeless people, I prefer to call them homeless people on the streets, is a societal problem, you know, and government alone cannot address it. Because even if somebody is homeless, or what we call vagrants in Dominica, the person has rights protected by the Constitution. And you cannot unduly detain somebody because he or she is walking the streets. Some actions which people want us to take, the law and the Constitution do not allow us to take those actions. What we had done was that we had put in place a stakeholders group together, involving the public sector and the private sector, to help address this issue. And as Minister of Finance, monies were requested of me, and I appropriated those funds to purchase what was required to be set up, I believe, downstairs, the psychiatric unit, and so forth. But I think we have dropped the ball on this as stakeholders, and it's something that we need to revisit and to provide better for the welfare of these people. But it's a societal problem. You require the support of the private sector, and we can't, you know, we have to be careful too. That we must not look at the vagrants only because they are affecting our economic positions. We have to be empathetic, and we have to be kind with this. It should not be about just lock them up. You know, I'm not going to be involved in just locking up human beings like this. This could be any one of us, brother or sister, walking the streets, and we have to understand that these people would have found themselves in difficulties, whether it's the use of drugs or some psychological depression, and have found themselves in this situation. And I think that we have to look at it more from a humanitarian standpoint, more from a standpoint of helping these people to be rehabilitated. They can be rehabilitated, you understand? But it requires the family support, because I remember once we were trying to help a young man, and the family stepped in, and did not want us to touch the guy. You see, so you have those challenges too. So it requires the families to step forward and say, I want you to help my son, I want you to help my daughter, and we can certainly help that son or that daughter. And the private sector provides support, financial support, and so forth. and the whole society must play its part in this. It is really a societal problem and requires all stakeholders to play. But it's something we need to give. I believe we may have to have it more structured and more institutionalized in terms of the interventions where those persons are concerned, rather than a knee-jerk reaction to the problem.
The smoking in public places.
Well, I smile on this, sometimes in Dominica, I think we prefer when somebody from overseas comes to tell us to do things and we rush to do it. I recall making that case in the public service in the country and about banning smoking in public places, and I didn't get the support for it. And then lo and behold, 2 years later, the WHO and the PAHO mandated countries to address smoking in public places, and so we never pursued it. It's similar to pit latrines. When I decided to eradicate pit latrines, I was laughed at. Only to find out 3 years later, the United Nations declared war on pit latrines. But the smoking in public places is a major concern, and it's an issue that we need to address. Even if smoking is not as prevalent in Dominica as it was 20 or 30 years ago, but one person smoking in the public can affect 5 people. So it is something that we need to put back on the agenda, like our assault on chronic non-communicable diseases. We have to have a national assault on chronic non-communicable disease in Dominica. But the smoking in public places is something we need to put on the agenda, especially as we have decriminalized a certain quantity of marijuana that people can have in their possession and people can smoke. But as I said in the parliament, that people are not going to be allowed to smoke on bus stops, on public transport, or walk in the streets. You smoke this thing at your home and in the privacy of your space, but not in the public domain. So I think it's a good opportunity to revisit that agenda item in terms of bans smoking in public places.
Mr. Prime Minister, a quick question. The Dominica Association of Teachers, also the Public Service Union, they rejected the latest salary increase proposals from government. What would be your message to these unions at this point in time?
I try not to give comments on when negotiations are taking place because there's a process in there. But my only view on this is that I'm hoping that good sense will prevail. We're hearing countries sending people home. We're in countries cutting back on salaries and wages, both in the public and private sector. I don't think anybody would want to be talking about a salary increase in the middle of this pandemic and not knowing what tomorrow is going to hold. We live in by faith now. We do not know what tomorrow is going to hold. As a matter of fact, we almost guarantee that tomorrow might be a challenge because of what's happening in this world, and countries are digging deeper into lockdowns. You see what's happening in California. The LA County is going on a complete lockdown as of tomorrow morning. So we have to be sensible and sensitive to the situation. I have not sent anybody home, including those who are temporary employment. We pay everybody on time, but the government has to be careful about the country has to be careful about increasing its wage bill at this time. When you have so many brothers and sisters in the private sector who have been sent home and who are working now 2 days a week and not 5 days a week, who are working 10 hours a week and not 40 hours a week, whose pay is now 50% and not 100%. So we have to be mindful of this, and so this may not be a time. I know the government has offered other things besides salary increases, and I will leave it to the government negotiating team to make this public at some point. But we've worked with the unions before. They have to represent the interests of their employees, and that's to say, we have appointed several people this year. Many teachers have been permanently appointed, at various levels in the public sector as a commitment we gave. There's a whole batch of them going to the commission, I understand, next month to be appointed. So we're giving people the security of tenure, but security of tenure can be affected if a country is unable to meet its wage bill. So the unions have to represent the interests of people. So I never criticize the unions or the leadership for representing the interests of their membership in the way that they determine or they are requested to. And by and large, I think at the end of the day, they're all reasonable people. And I have no doubt that reason will prevail in this circumstance as it has in the past.
Prime Minister, the Dominica University School of Medicine, it is one of the options that your government, has been pursuing as a replacement for the departed Ross. It announced, it was in the last issue of the Chronicle newspaper, that the classes have started for the Doctor of Medicine degree, and that's being done online, and it started on November 25th, 2020. The university said that plans for the commencement of earlier face-to-face programs, and my glasses are giving me some difficulty there. It said that the plans for the commencement of classes, face-to-face classes, on the island have been postponed due to COVID-19, and it is hoped that students will begin joining the school on island by January 2021, if the pandemic is brought under control. Who are the owners of the DUSM? Okay, yes, go ahead.
The DUSM is the principal is a gentleman of Indian origin, Indian nationality, whom we've been working with to seek to have the use of the former Ross premises to conduct the provision of medical degrees. We have had some issues with the investor in terms of the approach that had been taken in the past, and I have raised those concerns with him and his company. I am not quite satisfied that they have addressed those concerns, even if they have started classes online. And so I am not ruling out, as I've said before, on a similar question by one of the journalists, I'm not ruling out the government terminating its relationship with this group. And we are in discussions with another group, and we're learning from our experiences. But we had given this current one a timeline to address those concerns. We have seen some progress on their part, but not to the extent that the government would wish. And of course, we give them some leeway because we understand that all schools have been affected by COVID-19. I understand Ross, for example, in Barbados is doing courses from the United States because of the pandemic, and like many other medical schools. So there has been certain challenges in terms of their movement towards the realization of certain targets. But I still believe that they could have done a bit more in some other areas that are critical to the setting up of the medical school. So it's a matter the cabinet will have to make a decision on this sooner rather than later, and to give an opportunity, a firmer opportunity for the second group to demonstrate its capacity and ability to the establishment of that school.
What's the second group?
I do not have the name with me now. They have, I believe that they may have registered a company here in Dominica. But I do not have the precise name with me now, but I can provide that to you.
PM, you mentioned the last time you were there, this housing issue, 56,000.
Sorry, they're telling me that we have 5 minutes left, but I am prepared to extend it to exhaust all the questions that you may have.
Yes, because they keep coming in fast and furious.
They come fast and furious. So you have people sending you questions.
Yeah, people, yes.
I thought you came prepared your questions.
I have my questions.
We're getting more bullets.
I get more bullets to fire. Yeah.
You get a reinforcement.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
That's fine. That's
Yes,
fine.
good.
We got a journalist who ask questions before the people. That's correct.
I could prosper that. Prosper you on that? Yeah. Really, the housing, much talk has been said about that. As it relates to that, the question of rent for the home. When will the state be relieved of that situation? You said, remember you saying in 2 years. Will the state be doing some building for maybe future prime ministers?
Future prime ministers.
Because you have the land available anyway.
There are two things. As you know, the government is currently paying a rent for the prime minister, which created uproar in some quarters of the country. And the second decision the government took was that it will pursue the construction of a residence for the prime minister of the country, whoever the prime minister will be. But as you know, prior to that, prior to Hurricane Maria, the government had developed plans for the construction of an official residence for the Prime Minister of Dominica. And we had identified the location of the former residence of the Premier and Chief Minister of Dominica and Monbruce as that site. And we had preliminary drawings for this building. We were moving into structural drawings. But when you were faced with Hurricane Maria, and the question is, how do you go ahead and build a residence for Prime Minister when all the people are homeless and so forth? So I took a decision as Prime Minister to set it aside, and I believe then that was the better decision to make. The Cabinet, there's a ministerial subcommittee on the official residence of the Prime Minister, and there's a technical subcommittee working on this. The discussion is that we need to finalize a project document, drawings and structural drawings, architectural drawings and structural drawings, a location, etc., and have it there, cost it, and so on. But insofar as the current holder of the office of Prime Minister, I have started making plans to relieve the state of the rent that is paying for the Prime Minister, and I am moving to build my own residence for myself and my family, so that I will have my own keys for the homes, and I think I'll be better off that way. And it's unfortunate though that a Prime Minister would have to spend his monies, whether he's of course borrowed monies from the bank, to house the Prime Minister. You know, it's unfortunate, but that's what it is, and life goes on. But I will be building my residence, and I'm hoping that I can get out of the current accommodation paid by the Treasury before the 2 years of the lease agreement is up. So I'm pushing with lightning speed on this.
That was the question.
Yeah, but do you think...
Because one has to understand, I mean, I have 2 children, they're very smart. And they pick up things. And once it gets to them, you know, me, I'm fine. I can think about it. But once the children keep asking you questions about this, what are people saying about where you staying and all these questions and so on, no, I will not subject my... a man has to, in a home, has to take responsibility for his family and his family's welfare and well-being. And I will not allow my dignity to be dragged on the streets of Rosewood or anywhere in Dominica. So I'll have to use my children's money that I was saving for them to go to university at some point to build them a home for now, and we'll see what happens when they get to university age. So that's it. I'm pushing very fast to get out of this rent, and then, you know, the people's tax money, as they always say, that's paying my rent, and it's $42,000 of tax money, my tax money, and so on. The government will be able to use the $42,000 as the government wishes to spend the money every month. So we're pushing heavily, pushing the speed on this.
Mr. Prime Minister, just like to switch the topic for a moment. The state is seeking the death penalty in a recent murder conviction. The death penalty has been condemned by the various human rights groups internationally and whatnot. Even the Bishop of Roseau, His Lordship Gabriel Mazea, made a comment this week against the death penalty. What's your position on the death penalty, Mr. Prime Minister?
I have my position on death penalty, but I'm not sure whether now is the time for me to share it, especially if there's a matter before the judge to determine. And you know, in these things in Dominica, you know, I don't want to make a comment. I mean, even if it is not in relation to this particular matter before us, but I believe in the past I have expressed my personal position on this death penalty. I'll come back to you on this question immediately after the judge would have made a determination on this case. So as soon as the judge, I will share my concerns with this on this matter. But and I don't want you to say I'm not answering your question, because I would love to answer your question, because I have a response to your question. But I don't want to appear to be interfering with the process at this time, especially if the state had not asked for death penalty on this matter, I would have shared my views on it. But I am a bit cautious not to say anything now. But as soon as the judge would have made her decision, I will share my view on this.
But here's a question, Prime Minister, that I think you'll have an opinion on. And it has to do with the population of the country, because not too long ago, I just lost my, not too long ago you called on Dominicans to reproduce to the amount of, say, 40,000 people, you think, that were needed to increase the population. Because we needed to increase our population. We're underpopulated, as it were. For a number of years now, economist McCarthy Murray has been promoting the concept of underpopulation and the need to increase births. But also, I think we know generally that the majority of women in this country have passed the reproductive age. Okay? So that those people who are in a position to reproduce are in the minority. Do you feel, number one, that those who can reproduce, the women, are going to be able to meet your challenge, you know, of producing 40,000 babies? And does the government have an alternative, say, potential policy to increase the population of Dominica?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that we can have a discussion, a broader discussion on this at some point, and I intend to bring Mr. Murray on, who I have had discussion on this before, in order for there are a number of things one would have to consider on this, and causes and policies and programs you can put in place to facilitate this. But the reality is, we need more people in there, and because Dominica is so dispersed, you know, you have issues of economies of scale, you know. So you have, because of access now to roads, to water, to electricity, to telephone, people are moving into areas that were not residential areas, and you have to provide services to those communities. And if you look at other countries, they are denser in population concentration, smaller and denser, so that they are able to make more out of the dollar than us. You see. So, but there are a number of things. The issue of migration, the issue of fertility that we have to look at, and maybe what kind of policies and programs we can put in place. And this is why I believe projects like the International Airport is so important. Projects like the digital transformation of a country, the construction of the 5-star hotels under utilizing the CBI program, the expansion of the health services and improvement of the health services. All of these things, if I believe they all come together with the way that we are envisioning, could attract all young people to come to Dominica to work, and those who have remained would be attracted back into Dominica. Though I believe that I don't think a country needs to offer anybody anything to come back to his or her country, to work and to develop it. If every one of us were to take this attitude, you know, who would we have in Dominica? So, but nonetheless, this is reality that you have to confront. But I believe that there's some things that we can do. Obviously, we need to discuss it more, and more broad-based discussion on this, to identify the causes and the solution to address those challenges. But it is something, it's a discussion every country needs to have, and I'm happy to start. I'm happy I have started that conversation in the country. Because you look at our schools, some schools are closing themselves. In some villages, you have one child being born in a year, and I don't necessarily agree that the majority of people have passed their fertility rates. I know many people. I've seen some people in the room here with me who support staff and so on, and who either could have more or could start with one.
But it takes two to make
I know they have the means and the abilities, but people like to defer these things. So it's something that we are going to discuss and see what solutions we can develop for these things.
And this can probably serve as a, sorry Gavin, but as a segue into the situation regarding the Haitians in Dominica. Because for a number of years, the Haitians have provided a steady source of migrants, or immigrants, if you will, into the country. And they've met certain needs, in terms of filling the population gap, in terms of the workforce and so on. But recently, we've heard, situations where the Haitians have expressed dissatisfaction with the way they're being treated, in that some of them are being sent back home unceremoniously. Some of them were waiting for their work permits to be renewed, and that was denied, And so there's that general feeling that, it's like Dominica is no longer welcome, welcoming to the Haitians.
No, under this government, under my leadership, we've provided Haitians with citizenship. We've provided them with permanent residencies. Their children have free access to education, free access to the healthcare like all our children. They are granted work permits. And what I did some years ago, because there were times when Dominican employers were exploiting the Haitians. And under our law already, you require a sponsor, somebody who's writing, making a request, saying that they're offering employment and that they're requesting that you provide that person with a work permit. What we did in the cabinet was to give the Haitians sort of roving work permit. So they do not have to be employed by any particular person to get a work permit, to mitigate against the opportunities of exploitation of the Haitian people. There are many Haitians who have been exceptional persons in our community. They have done tremendous good in our country, but there are some who are bent on breaking the law. Now, we are not an island unto ourselves. We are part of the global security architecture, and we have a duty to secure our country, and we also have an obligation to assist in the securing of other countries. And so during this COVID period, I got calls from the Prime Minister of St. Martin. I got calls from the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. I got calls from the authorities in Guadeloupe and Martinique on the landing on these countries, a significant number of Haitian nationals who came from Dominica. And I've always pleaded to the Haitians, look, you're welcome to stay, but if you want to leave Dominica, leave by the port you came in, not illegally, and to place yourself and the children at risk. You understand? So we had to try to bring some order to the situation. And so we have put a new system in place to facilitate the granting of work permits and residencies. As a matter of fact, this cabinet on Tuesday, we approved citizenship for Haitians. The last cabinet, two Tuesdays ago, we approved citizenship and permanent residencies for Haitians. So we're continuing this. But we're going to go back to following the provisions of the law that if you are going to employ, you need to have a sponsor.